From a newly elected borough president to the opening of the new Yankee Stadium, there's a lot of things happening in the Bronx. And who better to talk about what's going on in the borough than the man who covers our neighborhoods 24/7, Daily News Bronx Bureau Chief and columnist Bob Kapsttara. Welcome to the program. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, my old Daily News cohort.
I know, we are all colleagues from the Daily News many moons ago.
Moons ago.
And now you're running the Bronx Bureau. And the Bronx Bureau is what? Tell us, Bob, what is the mission?
Well, basically, we have myself, four reporters, including one in the courthouse, and we're there to cover the ground as if the Bronx was a city unto itself, which in many ways it is. I tell my reporters, treat it that way. There are community groups, there are government groups, there's politics, there's crime, there's any number of things that we should be covering as you would in any separate city. Also the effect of the main city government out of City Hall, out of Albany, how it affects all our local citizens up here.
So it's basically a more local, community-based newspaper within the bigger Daily News section.
It's a borough newspaper, it's a community paper, it's a neighborhood newspaper. Sometimes it's a street newspaper of unique individuals or people that have some certain kind of problem with city government. We want to tell people, there's an old saying that it's heart to God, hand to man, daily news. We want to be there to tell people what they should know, what they need to know. We want to educate them, inform them, and hopefully entertain them at the same time.
But to your credit, you do that more than any other daily newspaper in the city. I
mean, thank you, sir.
The local coverage that these sections give to the boroughs is significant.
We hope that that's part of the formula that makes the Daily News the leading paper for metropolitan coverage that it is. You basically get two newspapers for the price of one when you pick up your Daily News in the morning.
You get a citywide national paper, and then you get your local paper inside.
Yeah, and some fun reading too,
hopefully. And you run that local section.
Well, not 24/7. I need time out for some time out.
Well, let me tell you, when I was at the Daily News, and all my life as a reporter, I used to tell people I'm a 24-hour reporter because if there's something really breaking in the middle of the night, I'm sure you get the call.
Well, I get the calls at 3 a.m. from some of my cop sources, yes.
Yeah. And then you know, either you go or you have to send someone else if it's something
Hopefully
major.
I'm an editor, I can send someone else.
There you go.
Okay.
So, Bob, tell me about your column, because you also write political column.
Well, you know,
what's going on in the Bronx.
I have to say, a lot of people say, I love your political column, but please don't call it a political column.
Okay.
It's a gossip column. I mean,
so basically you write about gossip about Bronx politics?
It's a gossip column about the Bronx,
Okay.
whether it involves politicians, cops, local community groups, interesting individuals. Unfortunately, there's been so much political news going on that it seems to have crowded out everything else in the column. But I'll use the word, it's a page 6 of the Bronx, but we won't say what newspaper that column is.
But you know, it has a great following, your column does. I mean, people do talk about it in political circles. They do follow it because sometimes you break the news that even politicians are not, things that are happening, sources tell you things that are happening that even politicians don't know.
Well, I guess that's part of the 24/7 thing. I wind up going to a lot of political events. I talk to a lot of politicians on the phone. A lot of schmoozing goes into that thing,
Absolutely.
and on both sides, the insiders, the outsiders. So I can sort of balance out where the gossip is and where maybe there's some pretty good truth to this that's going to come down the pike in a couple of weeks. It's going to happen.
So we've had a lot of changes here, and I've been reading your column lately.
Yeah.
Frankly, I was away from the Bronx for a while. I sort of covered the Bronx on and off for the Daily News for years, but then I went to the Bergen Record in New Jersey. Now I'm back in the Bronx, and let me tell you how I got reacquainted with the Bronx.
Yeah.
Reading you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, because I've caught up again with what's going on politically in the Bronx through your column.
To which I say to people, spend that 50 cents. Helps pay my salary.
But tell me, Bob, well, let's start with Adolfo Carrion.
Sure.
He goes to Washington. What does that mean for the Bronx? Here's the guy now who has supposedly this influence with the president, supposedly, and who can now, his experience, he draws experience from the Bronx. Now, is that going to benefit? Is that going to come back to us?
Well, I can't give that a good reading yet. Up here, obviously, in this city, he was a middle to bigger sized fish in a middle-sized pond. Down in Washington, he's swimming with a lot of sharks and whales down there right now in the White House and in government in general. Supposedly, one of the columns I did was that he's basically the White House's, for want of a better word, good cop, bad cop, to go to the secretaries of different cabinets and say, this is what the White House wants, but they have the deniability because it's coming from me if the program doesn't work. I have to say, we shall see. We shall see.
It's not a cabinet position.
It is not a cabinet
depends
position.
on other people to make the
He
final
is
decision.
he is among probably, I think, up to 24 people in the White House in similar positions. Like I said in the column, there are 3 White House people to deal with Hillary Clinton at State Department. So I would think that his expertise dealing with the Bronx, dealing with an inner city borough with a lot of problems does translate. He does have the president's ear, I would assume. I hope it works. I hope it works.
Okay, so tell me about the guy who is who just got elected to replace him, as you call him in your column, Rubencito.
Well, this week's column, I said, you know what? I'm going to stop the diminutive
Ruben Diaz
Rubencito.
Jr.
He's gone from short pants to long pants, as
Okay.
we say. I have a lot of respect, a tremendous liking. Please, Lord, don't let my faith in humanity fail me again.
Okay.
Okay.
So you expect a lot from Ruben Diaz Jr.
I think so. I mean, he's got a lot of energy. He's got 13 years up in the Assembly. He has his father, who is the state senator, for better or for worse, as some people might say. There's some dissension about the state senator and some of his legislative philosophy. But I think Ruben's got a very sharp head on his shoulders, and now I'm waiting to see who he brings into Borough Hall. I think one of the surprises unexpected surprises he may find at Borough Hall is the same thing that Adolfo found. When he walked in there was not a lot of staff because of budget limitations. There was not a lot of, let's just say, superior staff that had super talent. There's going to be some house, and also he'll be
There's some room for him to bring some of his own
there is
people,
room, and but the budget cuts. They've had to lay off staff. I don't know how much talent is left there. I think there's a fairly limited number. So let's see what he's doing. His chief of staff, Paul Del Duca, his current Assembly chief of staff, will come in as chief of staff. Very sharp guy, very knowledgeable guy. Let's see what happens with the transition. I'm giving it a wait and see. I want to call Freddie and Adolfo and say, what happened when you walked in? What was it like? What hit you in the face?
Yeah, that would be a good call.
So that's coming up. I'm going to reach out to
I'll look
those
forward
two
to that.
guys.
Let's take a short little break.
Okay.
We'll be right back with Bob Kapsttara of the Daily News.